Soaking up the sweat upon your brow. I could be less lonely, honey, if I could just remember you right now. Got to get down, find a rhythm to pick me up and catch the beat of this town. Walk upon me together, got to get down. Trace the bullet and sniff the dust and catch the beat of this town. What to find to feel better? The street lights and the ravers and my trails of misbehavior, lost in liquid nights and whirling disco lights. The burden of tomorrow, all the shame, regret and sorrow, lost in liquid nights and whirling disco lights. But I'm whirling through the half-light, shivers down my spine. Don't know where I'm becoming, but I know I'm making mine. I can't recall a thing, so why do I feel so sad? I can't recall a thing, so why do I feel so sad?
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another painting stream. Hello! I'm still here. Barely. Hey, I'm Andrew, and this is my painting stream where I paint Warhammer minis. I'm going to paint other minis eventually, but I've been painting Warhammer for the last few months. And it is definitely... I'm making progress, and I've done a lot of stuff, and we're getting close to the end. We've almost reached the end of all the Warcry stuff that I had from the Warcry demo that I was painting for the store. Right now, I have a few of these tiny little pieces of quote-unquote terrain that I'm working on. Just want to finish up a couple of those. We're going to do some washes today. We're going to muck about a little bit with some water texture, some acrylic, and yeah, things have been interesting since last we spoke, folks. I want to show you folks something. Let's go over to Zoom Cam here. This happened yesterday, apparently. So, if you've been following, you know that I've been working on these tiny little fountains, and I decided to add some acrylic water texture to them. It was, until yesterday, clear, which was really cool because you could see the stuff that was at the bottom of the fountain there, inside of it. And then yesterday it turned milky, and I think it must be the heat. I think the heat must have changed the way the acrylic reflects light. I don't know if it will change back or not. You can still barely see the skull and the bone that's embedded in the bottom of this fountain, but mostly it's milky now, which was not my objective, but okay. It's how it came out. How very weird, right? Isn't that weird, chat? Good morning, Lobster. Thank you. I mean, it's not what I was going for, but it's what we've got. And that's sort of something that happens a lot with this particular stream, I think, is that I am attempting new things, and as a result, sometimes things don't work out exactly the way I intended. I'm going to do one little thing to this, and then I'm going to count that as done. This one, I'm just going to count as done. I added, over the weekend, a little bit more acrylic to each of these, just to fill them up a little bit. If you were here last week, you saw that the layer of acrylic I had put in, when it dried, it sank significantly. It reduced in size by about 2/3, which is an important lesson. It's something to know about how this stuff acts. So that was an important thing to know about. Anyhow, I'm going to count this one as done. I'm going to move this to the done pile. I don't think there's any more damage I can do to that. There, done. This one, I want to add just a little bit of color to it. And the way we did this last time was we added a bit of acrylic, just a touch. There. And then I added a little bit of paint so that it sort of floated on the top of the acrylic. And the result is, the goal that I'm going for is to make it look like sort of algae floating on a pond. And I think I had used the heavy green, this dark green. So we're just going to add a little bit of that. While the acrylic is wet on the surface here. It's not as pronounced as it was on the other piece. There we go. There we go. I put rather too much on. It's okay. Well, now we'll let that dry and we'll see what the end result is. I think that was too dark. I think I had used a different color the last time. Anyways, we'll let that dry. And then we're going to do a little bit of, we're going to do some washes. Using the Agrax Earth Shade. Try and tilt this slightly. I want the green concentrated more on this side. There. I hope that will work. We'll see what happens when it starts to dry. Interesting. Well, you know, this stream is all about experimenting, trying new things. Let's, so I did a wash on this side of this piece here, but I've not done a wash on the other side yet. So let's do a wash on this. And then I have one other, well, two other pieces that I also want to do a wash on that we haven't seen in a little while. So we'll bring out our special guest pieces in a moment. I don't know how long it's going to take this wash to dry in this humidity. It's not unbearably hot in the painting nook today, but it is warm. It's probably in the 70s in this room. It's warm and sort of humid, so 70s Fahrenheit, of course. But that humidity might impact how well this stuff dries. If this wash dries before the end of today's stream, I'd like to do some final touches on this piece. Add highlights, and we're using a bit of flocking to give it a weathered look. Make it look like it's got sort of moss growing on it. Came out really well on the other one of these. So maybe we'll get to do that today on this stream. And Miracle Sound is not wrong. It has been a long, long year. This past week has been a long, long year. So, speaking of Warhammer and things Games Workshop-y, folks amongst you who follow such things will know that Age of Sigmar is coming out with a new version. Age of Sigmar version 3.0 arrives in stores this week, this weekend. And the Abington location of Battleground Games and Hobbies, where I work, got a demo copy. So we got an early display copy, which I have been assembling. And let me tell you, chat, the Age of Sigmar starter box, called the Dominion box, has quite a lot of figures in it. Like, you have no idea how many figures. The box, I believe, in the ad copy on the box, says more than 30 figures inside. Chat, it's a lot more than 30 figures. I started assembling it when we received it last week, and just sort of between customers and during downtime at the store. And I've gone in early a couple of times to get a little bit of modeling done just because it's fun off the clock. And I finished the first army yesterday, which is the Stormcast Eternals. And I think there's 20-something figures in just the Stormcast Eternals army. And there's another entire army of orcs to assemble. I built the first one yesterday. A very cool orc commander astride a wolf. Which was a real challenge to assemble. There's a couple of tricky bits in the assembly of that piece. But it is taking me rather a while to even build all the pieces in this set. I have accepted the fact that there is no physical way I can paint all the pieces in this box. At least not by Saturday, which is when the set comes out. So I'm going to do some sort of quick and dirty, slap some color on them. But my goal at this point is just to have the whole thing built by then, because it's taking me a while to get everything assembled. But if you're an Age of Sigmar fan, or if you're an Orcs fan, I highly recommend checking out the Dominion box. It comes out on Friday. In the US, at least, the price point on it is like a steal. Like 2 vast armies of figures and the new instruction book, sort of deluxe hardcover copy of the instruction book, for $200. It's at least $50 cheaper than I would have guessed its lowest cost could possibly be. Like, if you're splitting it with somebody, you're essentially getting a start collecting and, the instruction booklet. 2 start collectings and an instruction booklet for $100 per army, and a start collecting box these days is normally about $100, and then the instruction booklet itself. And the figures are so gorgeous. I really do wish I had the time to paint them, because they're so beautiful, and I would love to be able to do them justice. I just don't have the time for that. Okay. Boy, I really went overboard with the wash on the other side of this, or at least on this corner. Look right there. Just very, very dark. That's fine. Alright, so that's the wash done on this piece. Set that aside to dry. Let's do a wash on these 2 little goobers. think this looks okay. You can't see the skull anymore because the green is too green. It is what it is. So these were a lot of fun. I was working on these last Friday. These tiny terrain bits with all this broken crockery and stuff. I had a lot of fun painting patterns onto the pots. It was a very silly thing to do, but a ton of fun. I think I'm going to add a little metallic highlight to these. I'm enjoying working on these little terrain pieces because they're a way to do something where I get to mess around and sort of play without impacting something that's going to be a major piece on the table, so to speak. They're just something fun to mess with. I'm going to add a little metallic to the halo here on this guy. I guess this is a Stormcast Eternal like relief on this. So maybe I should be doing this in gold, but I'm just going to do it in metallic. And then we can rust it up a little bit after the wash dries. I had a lot of fun. With this piece, I will say. Okay. I'll let that dry for a sec. And while that dries, hey chat, let's bring out a couple pieces I haven't worked on in 2 months. So, Lobster, you may remember these. I don't know if you will. Way back at the beginning of this stream, I was working on Warcry terrain pieces, and I was working on the larger terrain. And there's a couple of sort of planks. Where are they? They're underneath some things here. There they are. So I've got 2 of these. These are just planks that go between terrain pieces. When you are playing the game, they're a upper platform that allow you to have folks up high aiming down on things. And I gave them a base coat like a month and a half ago, back before I started work on the Chaotic Beasts and the Untamed Beasts. And they've just been sort of sitting on my work desk here. So let's do a wash on these, because I'm going to want to, let's not put them in the wet paint, maybe. Yeah. I prefer I didn't do that. That's fine. Okay. But yeah, let's do a wash on these. just to sort of highlight some of the wood grain and give them a little bit more texture. We'll do some quick highlights on them tomorrow. And then we can move these to the done pile. Actually, it might take a couple of days because I'll probably have to do a wash to this side and then do a wash to the other side. But I figure if I can move a couple pieces to the done pile each day, we'll finish all this small terrain this week. And that'll be cool. Especially these boards need a wash. I compared that board that I just did a wash to this board without it. You can see why you need to do that. So chat, are you folks excited for Community Art Day this coming Monday? Monday the 5th is our next Community Art Day for the channel. I hope folks will post some things in the Discord so that I have some cool things to show off. And I'll be working on a Pain Boy, which is a Warhammer 40k orc. But I have some very ambitious plans for it. I'm kind of using Community Art Day as an opportunity to do something extremely ambitious. Last month on Community Art Day, I worked on a Stormcast Eternal figure that I was painting up, and I tried to do it over the course of that week, basically. But I tried to work on light sourcing and non-metallic metal. It was an experiment, because these are techniques that I have not had a lot of practice with. And obviously, it didn't come out perfect the first try, but it came out looking kind of cool, I think. And I learned a lot, which was what what I intended to do. And I'm looking forward to this coming Monday, Monday the 5th of July, continuing on in that vein, doing something bold and experimental with my Community Art Day. So I hope you folks will be able to join me for that. And I hope folks will be able to participate by posting whatever art it is you choose to do in my Discord in the Share Your Accomplishments thread. And we'll sort of take a look at them during the stream. You'll recall during Community Art Day this month, we looked at a lot of cool minis that Amanda had done. Looked at some of the Dark Crystal minis that she's done. some of the Highlander minis. My wife is a very good painter and does some really nice work. I said last time that I was inspired by her work on some of the Highlander minis, the kimonos that she had done, when I was doing these, the pots that are in this tiny terrain piece. I'm going to do the wash on one side of each of these platforms, and then we'll put them aside. Again, I don't know how long stuff is going to take to dry today. What with the humidity and the heat and the awfulness. Funny, this song was part of a trilogy that Miracle of Sound did for Grand Theft Auto 5. He did 3 songs. Or no, I'm sorry, this is Payday, this is Outer Worlds. But he did a trilogy of songs based on Grand Theft Auto 5. And my wife has been watching a lot of people playing Grand Theft Auto 5 multiplayer on a role-playing server. And it's kind of funny to think about how far that game has come, since the single-player version was, a tale of 3 ne'er-do-wells who are kind of obnoxious people because, for some reason, that's the kind of people that Grand Theft Auto generally has as their heroes. It's just really obnoxious, annoying people. The technology of the Grand Theft games is astonishing, and the characters that they choose to highlight are people I would not want to spend any time with, for the most part. But the Grand Theft Auto roleplay servers, they have their fair share of annoying people, because, sometimes people like playing antagonists, but it's not 100% annoying people, and Amanda's been really enjoying watching people roleplay in this imaginary West Coast city of Los Santos. Chat, there's a bit of rope here that I never painted, and I think I don't care. Discovering things that I failed to paint 2 months ago. At some point, you just have to let it go. Okay. Oh, got a nice wash on there. Compare and contrast. Here's the side with the wash. Here's the side without the wash. I think it adds a lot. And like I said, we'll add some highlights and stuff to that when the wash is dried. So let's do one more of those. Oh man, coffee. I really needed coffee today. So we did finally bring the air conditioning up from the basement yesterday, or Sunday. We were having Amanda's parents over for a cookout. Tested out our new grill. We're ready for having a whole bunch of my family over, both of our families over for the 4th of July. And we brought the air conditioners up from the basement and put them in the windows. So, although it's still very warm in this room, and this is the coolest room in the building generally. So it's a little toasty in here, but not awful. I wouldn't want to be exerting myself. I wouldn't want to be doing any exercise or anything. That's fine for painting. But yeah, it's a little warm in this room. The rest of the apartment is actually pretty much livable as long as the air conditioning holds out. But we couldn't go on any longer without air conditioning, I think. We tried to make it till July without installing the AC. Couldn't quite do it. So I did hear on the radio that officially for Massachusetts this has been the warmest June on record. And a June with 2 heat waves, I believe it. I am not looking forward to July and August. August in Massachusetts, or at least in the Boston area, is traditionally the most unlivable month. And I do not think it's going to be very pleasant this month, or this year. I don't know. I don't enjoy living in apocalyptic end times. It's not not how I would choose to live, but it's the world that has been left to us. I blame science denialism and capitalism. I just want a safe place where I can sit and paint and not worry about the world falling apart. I don't feel like that's too much to ask for, but maybe it is. Halfway done with this piece. This is very relaxing. There's not a lot of precision involved in applying a wash like this. It's just sort of spreading the paint and sort of trying to guide it into the places that you want to be darker to increase the contrast. But this is not high effort painting here, y'all. This is exactly the speed that I need today. It's very simple. Getting paint on a model. I would say painting is therapeutic. Yes, Lobster. I don't know. The last few weeks, I've not been in a great headspace. And sometimes it's a challenge to pull myself together enough to sit down and do some painting on stream. But once I'm here, once I'm online, and once I'm hanging out with you folks and putting paint on models, this is a pleasant way to spend the time, and I hope that for you folks it's also a pleasant way to spend the time, that hanging out with me while I experiment with paints and make gray plastic less gray is a pleasant and calming way to start your day. That's my goal anyhow. I mean, everybody has bad days, right? It's a fact of life. But hopefully, this provides a escape for people. That would be nice. And it's a calming place to spend some time on your day. And honestly, I'd rather be actively creating something, even if it's just, painting something that somebody else sculpted. It's my interpretation, and it's an opportunity to do something creative with my time. And I feel like that's a benefit. I'd always rather create than destroy. And somebody, someday, is going to get a chance to play with these pieces that I'm spending all this time painting. And they may not know who I am or, what was involved in the creation of these pieces, but hopefully, when they put them on the table and play with them, they'll appreciate the detail that I was able to get in. It will improve their play experience. Okay, so that's the wash done on one side of each of those. Thank you, Merriman. Yes, Amanda, bad days are just days that are bad. For the Animal Crossing New Leaf fans among you. I've started getting iced coffees on my way to work. So I've been increasing my coffee intake, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but it certainly is nice to have an icy beverage at work. And it helps that it's a caffeinated beverage. And it's good to have a beverage that I can drink through a straw because it doesn't involve removing my mask much. I'm still wearing my mask whenever possible at work. Massachusetts is doing pretty well COVID-wise, but I'm not prepared to let my guard down at this point. Alright, let's do a wash on each of these little pieces. Should be pretty quick, probably. It is so immensely satisfying, chat, just putting a wash on something that you've done a sort of rudimentary base coat on. I know I say it pretty frequently, but that's because it's true. I highly recommend it if you have an opportunity to do some painting. I didn't do anything with this blue pot there. Oh well. I'm so pleased with how this pot came out, with the little flowers that I painted on it. It was such a fun, silly thing to do. Not as happy with the stick figure on the chariot here, but I think it reads. is pretty quick work. I feel like all these things that I've done the wash on, I'm not going to be able to do highlights on them today, because they're just really not going to dry in time. We'll take a quick test of that first piece that I put a wash on today and see what its status is. But I strongly suspect not gonna be able to do finishing touches on any of these pieces today. I'm gonna need more Agrax Earth Shade at some point. Not getting to the bottom of the bottle, but I've used about half of this bottle. Sorry, back the camera there. So, Lobster, you bring up tin soldiers. I recall when visiting my grandfather for the summer, there being a vast collection of Napoleonic tin soldiers in the attic. Were those yours? And if so, did you have to paint them? Or did they come from the box like that, fully painted? My grandfather also had a dollhouse that he had been working on at one point or another. So the construction and painting of minis is obviously something that goes down through the generations in my family. It was one of those infamous, never complete projects that my grandfather had. He had a catamaran that was in his backyard, in his garden. He had a garden full of vegetables with a catamaran parked in the center of it, which he had been constructing at one point. And he had this gorgeous, complex balsa wood dollhouse that he had been working on at one point. That was in the pool building, in amongst his father's vast book collection. If Twitch had been around in the 50s and 60s, perhaps my grandfather would have been building a dollhouse on his Twitch channel on weekends and on days off.
Guess what I'm saying, chat, is that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and having complex artistic projects, endeavors that never quite get finished is a familial thing for me. Also collecting. My great-grandfather collected books and coins. My grandfather also contributed to this book and coin collection, I believe. I have some coins that I collected in the 80s. Who knows if coins collected in the 80s are worth anything, but I've got a small collection of stuff. I recall that there were a lot of bicentennial coins, because the bicentennial was a big thing for some reason. And back before the mint used to make different coins for every state, which has been a very successful artistic endeavor and has made coin collectors out of a lot of kids down through the last couple of decades. But back before then, non-traditional quarters were a much rarer thing. But for the bicentennial, when I was 4 years old, the US Mint produced a whole bunch of bicentennial coins, which were promptly taken out of circulation and socked away by collectors. And I recall having quite a few of those as a kid. Of course, anything that everybody collected is not really worth anything nowadays, because everybody collected them. Everybody's got bicentennial coins in almost mint condition. On this amphora here, this yellow one with the stick figures on it, I was going for sort of Egyptian vibe to the figures. I don't know if it came across. I don't know if that worked. I think I did a better job on this blue pot here with the waves. Yeah, they were definitely tin soldiers, Lobster, that were in the attic. There was 2 armies, and I think that they were Napoleonic War figures, like hussars and French rifle people. I remember arraying them out because there were, it was musketeers, and there were several poses. There were some that were lying down, and some that were kneeling, and some that were standing, so you could arrange them into a firing line. I think there may have been some mounted figures as well. I don't course, with those, as far as I know, there were not complex dice rules for how to execute a battle, but you could still set up like battle formations. All right, let's see how dry this piece is. It's a little tacky on this side. It's not completely dry, chat. I think I'm gonna let this sit and maybe work on something else for the remainder of today's stream. And by something else, I mean something slightly bigger. Put this brush away. So these synthetic brushes hold their shapes pretty well, but you can see I've already got like a little bit of a curl at the end of this brush. I've been using it a lot for washes and things like that, and it's sort of mashed up a bit at the end. All right. Give me a sec, chat. I'll be right back. All right, I return. Hello. And I bring with me a much larger piece of terrain. So I had started work on this back when I was working on some of the other minis. You can see I've painted around a little bit on this side. We did the wood, and we did some of the metal bits. But there's a lot of this stone work that needs work. So I'm going to move some of these pieces that I've just done a wash on out of the way. And I've got 50 minutes or so left. So let's get a little more of this done. I'll admit, these very large pieces I've been deliberately postponing because I know they're going to be somewhat monotonous to paint. But perhaps having done all the other stuff that I've been working on, I'll be a little bit faster now. I don't know. We'll see. I don't even know if this is on camera. This is a very large piece after painting so many minis. It doesn't really fit on my painting space any longer. I think when I was painting these before, I had the camera at a slightly higher angle. If I'm going to be doing this going forward, I need to adjust my camera. If anybody in chat is a fan of historical minis and tin soldiers and that sort of thing, I recommend checking out the game Black Powder, because that is basically, it's plastic, but the molds are the same as the tin soldiers I recall from my youth. And it's the same sort of mini. And it does have dice-based shooting rules, so if you build a bunch of musketeers, you can do little mock battles. See how your troops do against other troops. Indeed, if you're in the Abington area, I happen to know that one of our regulars is planning to play some Black Powder in the back room within the next couple of weeks. And he may be willing to show it off to you. Black Powder covers a wide range of minis, because it's Revolutionary War, Napoleonic Wars, all of that sort of couple hundred years around there. I've gotten a lot of bubbles into the paint here. Didn't mean to do that. Chat, give me a couple of moments here. I want to adjust this camera because I'm running right up against it here, and I need to adjust it to be able to fit under it here. Over here. Hey there. While I adjust this, give me a second here. I need to find. Oh my goodness. This desk is such a mess. Okay. There we go. Zoom camera is not quite so zoomed any longer. This gives me a little bit more space to work in. this a little bit faster. If I'm going to do these large terrain pieces, I need to get a little bit better at getting paint on here quickly and accurately. I don't know. I could graduate to a larger brush, but there are some areas that I'm still trying to do some precision on. It's a challenge, chat. Like, if I had infinite time, it wouldn't be an issue. I could just take my time, do these as perfectly as I'm capable of. But I have other projects I want to work on. I don't want to be painting this terrain for the rest of my life. I have such sympathy right now for anybody who has a job that requires a good deal of moving about. I have a friend who works as a chef, and I cannot imagine what that must be like in 90-degree weather. I mean, it's hot enough in the kitchen normally. What must it be like now? I guess you can walk into the walk-in freezer. I've got friends in the construction industry. I hope they get frequent cooling on the job. We are in unprecedented times now, folks. So I don't know even if union jobs in construction have put into place sufficient safeguards for when the weather is this unbearable. I mean, I'm sitting here perfectly sedentary, painting a mini, and even now I'm sweating a little bit. Not terribly. Like I said, it's bearable in this room. but I can't. It's got to be a major health hazard to be working a construction detail or something like that in this weather. Sorry, I've drifted off camera. Like I said, this is awkward. I think for these large pieces, I'm going to go back to that slightly problematic but larger bulk wash that I have that came out looking kind of glossy. I have found that if I spray on a matte sealant onto that slightly glossy finish, it comes out okay. So, just because there's so much volume to cover here, I think I'm going to want to have more coverage faster, which means using a lot more wash. It would be nice to be able to get at least one of these large pieces done this week. I don't know if that's feasible given the time constraints of my stream and the amount of detail that I'm trying to put into these. But it would be nice to get at least one done, bring into the store and add to the done pile. I think I mentioned before that when I was assembling these, the instruction booklet was very vague. It was like, take these pieces, assemble walls. I was like, okay, just sort of build whatever I want then. Got some more paint. Let's see how much of this I can do in the next half hour. inside of this arch now. Well, I'm definitely, due to a combination of speed and a slightly overused brush, I am definitely getting a little bit of bubbles into the paint here. But considering that this is sort of common terrain, maybe I just don't care. I hear yard work going on outside. Oh, I feel so bad for those people. I guess get it done now before the true heat begins. It's probably only 80 something outside right now. It's going to be in the 90s or 100s later today. It's already 91. Oh, man. When I was young, I remember watching Robotech, which was, for anybody unfamiliar with it, a program brought over to the US from Japan, I believe by Sandy Frank, of Mystery Science Theater fame, cobbled together from 3 different 70s anime. Which led to it being a little bit difficult to watch at times. You know, as a kid, I assumed I didn't understand what was going on because I had missed some episodes. As an adult, I realized I didn't understand what was going on because it was 3 different shows mashed together into a single show. the art styles aren't even exactly the same. They're all, big eyes, small mouth, 70s anime. So they looked different from anything in 80s cartoons. But they don't even all look exactly like each other. The reason I bring this up, chat, is one of the shows involved bikers in a post-apocalyptic wasteland because the environment had degraded to a state that the surface of the earth was not really livable. And chat, we're there already. The sci-fi of the 70s is 100% true right now in the US. There's areas of the planet where you could not survive unprotected in the sunlight. Like I said, I don't enjoy living in the dystopian future. I don't think anybody wanted to live in Mad Max. It was meant to be a cautionary tale. And if this past year has taught us anything, it's that the answer to the question of what will we do to protect the underprivileged at a time of global catastrophe is nothing. We'll just let them die. So, yeah, that's great. Sorry, chat, that's a bit of a downer. That's not where I usually want to go with my chat. This is why it's been difficult for me to get out of bed some of these days. So Robotech was not Sandy Frank. Okay. I feel like Sandy Frank did do something with anime. Maybe it was, what was it called? Force 5? There was a anime program that had a different anime each week. Or, I'm sorry, each day of the week. So it was a different anime on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, yeah. and I think it was called Force 5. These were the Japanese animation of my youth, chat. Were shows with somewhat shady provenance. I'm willing to bet that the American companies dubbing and broadcasting these in the U.S. Didn't pay much for the rights to the works they were adapting. It's my guess, anyways. It was the 80s. But it was Robotech, Force 5, and Star Raiders. Were the three programs I remember watching the most. The biggest appeal to me as a child of the 80s to these anime programs that were brought over to the US, besides the clear aesthetic differences, the very cool sort of style that they had, was that these were, in many cases, more epic shows where there were actually through lines and plot that went from one episode to another. The vast majority of animation of the day was syndicated animation based on toys in the US. So, you know, He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe. And those programs, due to the nature of syndication, by necessity, had no opportunity for character advancement. It was quite shocking and kind of earth-shattering when Hasbro and the Transformers movie retired a bunch of characters and brought new ones in during the Transformers movie. Actually allowed characters to die. Not something that 80s me was prepared to see. But that was the appeal of anime. It felt like a larger world, because I constantly had the impression, because I didn't watch a lot of, well, I guess I watched a fair amount of Saturday morning cartoons and stuff, but I didn't watch TV every night. I don't think. And I always felt like I was missing things when I was watching my 80s anime. Partially because I was missing things, and partially because characters would make reference to other worlds, races, things that had occurred in the timeline that I had missed, and partially just due to kind of wonky translation. The fact that nothing really made sense. But it made the worlds feel more lived in and more interesting, more epic, like I said. I guess 80s me was used to TV series where at the end of every episode everything was set back to exactly the way it was at the start of the episode in terms of characters and the world. Because that's the way syndicated TV worked. Contrast that with the current sort of trend in media, which is the can't miss an episode trend, where things move quickly. If you miss an episode, you won't know what's going on in the world anymore. How can you talk with your friends at the water cooler the next week if you miss an episode? Or the binging mode, where watch an entire series in a couple of days. If it was in the old syndicated way, man, would that be brutal. I can't imagine binging a season of Cheers, for example. Oh my god, that would be just awful. Binge watch a season of Three's Company. Every episode just blends into the others. messy here. Oh well. Yeah, Amanda, definitely. 80s TV animation in the US was all about selling toys. This was, I believe Bob has talked about this movie. Bob has talked about the fact that there was a lot of deregulation of the television industry in the 80s. So, part of the way you financed a television program in the 80s was by making it into just basically a half-hour commercial. Animation is not cheap, even crappy animation. So if you're gonna make something to fill a 20-minute time block, you need to have some financing. And the toy industry of the 80s was the source of most of the financing for the animation industry of the 80s. The TV animation, anyways. This is where I'm ending up getting a lot of air beaten into the paint. There's this particular part of this sculpt has this sort of rune work here, and in the process of painting it, I'm having to get some bubbles in there. It's okay. I'm going to go back over these probably with something to highlight them, and when I do that, maybe the bubbles will be less apparent. We'll see. What is this? Is this? There's like a big ol' fuzzy here. I don't know if it's dust or cobwebs or glue. This would be an occasion to use my new tweezers. Yeah, just dust. Thank you. Yes, they're excellent tweezers. They're $10 tweezers. Well, I guess $5 tweezers because $10 got me two. I feel like I'm getting used to some of these shapes as I paint them over and over again. This is definitely where Lobster asked, are these sculptures created digitally or are they carved? Like, how do the sculptors at Games Workshop create these pieces? I'm inclined to think it's probably digital. But even if it's not, even if they're using traditional sculpting means, there's a lot of step and repeat here. They probably sculpt one of these shapes once and then punch out a bunch of copies of it. But like these figures here, yes, there's some difference. You can see that they've, I don't know if you can see it, but they've got wear carved into them. But at their core, they're all exactly the same shape, repeated. Well, I guess we're getting close to wrapping up, folks. So the answer to how much of this can I do, how much of this piece of terrain can I do in about an hour? Because I started this large piece at about 11 o'clock. And, you know, it had some paint on it, obviously. So, but what we've done today in the space of about an hour is from this corner here so from here around the other side, all of this in the top portion here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do it by these pillars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pillars worth, and 2 of these pillars. So say 10 pillars worth in an hour. So that's about the equivalent of these two sections here. So if this is an hour, this is probably an hour to get around to the other side here. This is probably an hour, that's 3, and then say 4 hours worth of work to do the remainder of the base coat on this. Okay, that gives me a quick guesstimate of 2 sessions worth of work. So if I work on this thing for all of Tuesday and Wednesday, or all of Wednesday and Thursday, I could maybe do a wash on it on Friday. What do you think, chat? Is that too boring to watch? I might be able to get to doing a wash on this by Friday. That'll be my goal. That's what I'll set myself as a goal, is to try and get to doing a wash on this piece by Friday. In the meantime, we've done a wash on one side of each of these. We'll do the other side tomorrow. We've done a wash on these 2 little bits. We'll do some highlights on these 2 little bits here tomorrow. I'm going to count this is done as soon as it dries. I'm just waiting for that to dry. And this has a wash on both sides of it, so we'll do highlights and glue some flocking to it tomorrow. So, progress. Yay, progress. And of course, it's all thanks to you, chat. It's because you hang out with me that I feel motivated to do any of this. So thank you for joining me once again for a little bit more painting. I will hopefully be here tomorrow at 10 a.m. to do some more painting. Tonight at 10 p.m., Amanda will be reading a little bit more of Swallows and Amazons. It's possible before then that our friend Andrew will be streaming online if you want to check out 10 Rabid Bears. And tomorrow afternoon is Wednesday afternoon. Our good friend Insidious Pie will be doing a little bit more Arcade Spirits. I think she's in the end game now. So thank you so much for joining me, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay cool. Take care of yourselves. It's dangerous out there, folks. So don't go alone. Be excellent to each other and enjoy whatever art it is you choose to do. Thanks for joining me, folks. Have a great day.